The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, and I'm just going to go into presentation mode and talk you through what I think is a very interesting topic that anybody who's involved with TM1 will be interested in. So just a brief overview of Tridant. We're actually the first IBM business partner worldwide to receive triple gold accreditations on our IBM solutions. So that means that we're certified across BI, TM1 and Cognos Disclosure Management to a gold level. And we're very proud of the fact that we've been a multiple winner of the IBM Smarter Planet Award for both 2011 and 2012. And also equally proud of the fact that we've been on the BRW Fast 100 list for 2012 and 2013. We've done many projects over the years now across the IBM stack, really specializing on the integration across the business analytics stack and into information management. And we're one of the largest implementation teams in Australia, and recently opened offices in Canberra and Singapore. So onto Cognos Command Center. Now, not many people have heard of Cognos Command Center, but what I wanted to do was really start off today with signs that you might need the Cognos Command Center tool within your environment. So some of the reasons why you might want to consider Cognos Command Center. If you're using Windows Scheduler within your TM1 environment to be able to kick off, say, backups of your TM1 data directory, or maybe you're using Windows Scheduler to kick off TI processes via run TI commands, then the actual control of that via Windows Scheduler is a lot more mature, shall we say, in Cognos Command Center. You have a lot more flexibility than you would do with just the normal Windows Scheduler. If you want to empower your end users to be able to manage their own processes, by processes I don't just mean TI processes, but actually business processes around your Tier 1 system. So not just loading data in and out, but actually the automation of sending an email at the end of the data load to tell people that everything's gone planned, or even the ability for people to log on and via web page or maybe their mobile phone and to kick off a set of overnight loads that comprises of a number of different environments and a number of different TI processes with status reports and logging all around it. Maybe you find within your TM1 environment that you've got many different batch files or VB scripts, and within there you're actually logging on to your TM1 system through those batch files, or you're logging on to SMTP servers through those batch files, and you might actually be containing logon details within there. Now, this isn't good from a security or a auditable process point of view. So Cognos Command Center is a very good tool for to be able to set up everything in a very dynamic and secure way. And I'm going to show you how it does that as part of the demonstration. Obviously, TM1 has a very extensive auditing and logging capability, but it's contained in a very long list of information. The logging times that are associated with that are typically against, say, GMT time, and you're really having to go searching for details of information. So what Cognos Command Center can do is it can actually introduce a great deal of auditability and status reporting around who ran what, where, and when. So that way you can understand exactly what is happening within your TM1 system without having to write custom code to be able to drag out a report or to go searching for details. So if you might find that within your TM1 environment you've got a lot of VB scripts, maybe some open source tools, you're finding that everything is kind of hanging together just about, but it's really reliant upon one or two key people in the organization who are the only ones who can understand that particular VB script or really understand how to automate that batch file via Windows Scheduler. Then you'll probably find that Cognos Command Center offers a much more mature way to automate and bring together the capabilities within your environment that make it a much easier set of applications to look after going forwards and don't require as many skill sets. If you find that you're working across maybe multiple vendors within your organization, maybe you don't have just TM1, maybe you have TM1 and HFM, Oracle HFM for your consolidations process, or maybe that you're working in cross-platform deployments, so maybe you have TM1 on your Windows server, but then you might have a DB2 database on a Unix server, for example. And if you want those environments to easily talk to each other and for information to be exchanged and automated between those environments and vendors, then you'll find Cognos Command Center an excellent tool to be able to do that. If you find that your automations are controlled by IT, while finance actually needs to be able to run and monitor around the applications. By this I mean that if, say, IT are having to write the batch files because they are the only ones with the capability and the skill sets to write those batch files and to maintain them, but the actual finance people need to be able to run them and understand if something goes wrong with them or potentially maintain them. Then you've got potentially multiple parties involved that are having to communicate between each other to be able to not only run them but potentially monitor them over time as well. Then you'll find that Cognos Command Center is a much easier tool to be able to set up these automations. If your on-premise business applications need to coexist with applications in the cloud, what you'll find is that Cognos Command Center is an excellent tool to be able to, say, monitor directories if files are going to be appearing on FTP sites, and when a file appears that you need to do something with that file, maybe move it to another directory, maybe load it into TM1, send an email to tell someone that it has arrived safely. All of this becomes very easy with Cognos Command Center, and it's really one of the key tools moving forwards, I believe, around some of the automation that's going to start happening with TM1 in the SoftLayer capability within IBM as well. Another thing that I believe is a real key differentiator for Cognos Command Center in environments is if you are trying to load a large amount of data overnight into your TM1 server and you're wanting to utilize the multiple threads that are on your TM1 server, and you're utilizing your runti.exe to fire off multiple TI processes against your TM1 server to load them in parallel, then you'll probably find that you're having to either rely upon some third-party tools or some open source capabilities, or maybe just a lot of scripting within your TI processes that is very hard to maintain, very hard to debug. So where Cognos Command Center really shines is the ability to easily lay out your TI processes into logical groups, and one of the things that it can do is to maintain them in what we call parallel groups. If you've got 4 TI processes that are executed at the same time, one of them takes 4 minutes, one of them takes 4.5 minutes, one of them takes 5 minutes, one of them takes 6, and you want them to execute in parallel, but you don't want the next group to start until they've all finished, then you're really waiting till that last one is finished in 6 minutes. Now this is where Cognos Command Center, using something called parallel groups that we'll have a look at, really is able to automate the capabilities in this regard and make it easy to maintain over your overnight loads with full auditability around it as well. So here we have just a quick overview of how Cognos Command Center fits into the scheme of things within your environment. Down the bottom we have agents. You require an agent to operate against the different systems that you might be talking to. So you might have an agent for TM1, you might have an agent for HFM, you might have an agent in place for Oracle Essbase, you might have an agent in place for SQL Server. So Cognos Command Center actually sits here in the middle, and it controls the security, the processing logic, and one of the things we'll talk about is the great scheduling capabilities that are involved in there. And it talks to these systems via these plug-in agents that are available. As you design these Cognos Command Center logic, it's all stored in a repository of information. That means it can be easily backed up and transported. It can plug in to alerts and events by enabling you to easily send, say, an SMTP email, or maybe plug into other third-party schedulers. The IBM Cognos Command Center itself has a web service capability, so that the Cognos Command Center itself is exposed as a web service for other SOA capability within your organization. And the actual administration and execution of Cognos Command Center is all done potentially through a web browser, which is able to be done over your iPhone or Android tablet as well. So you're actually able to, once you design your processing logic, execute that, say, from your iPhone, so you don't even have to be actually sat next to your laptop or computer to be able to do any of this. So what I thought I'd do is I'd run through a couple of slides around how it looks and feels, and then before we actually get into actually playing with the tool live. So what I wanted to show here was logging into the Cognos Command Center, how you can actually, once you've designed your jobs, how you can actually view all of your jobs in one easy dashboard. So here we've got the ability to see all the processes that are available within Cognos Command Center. We can see what environment they are designed to work against. So setting up Cognos Command Center correctly, you'd be able to see how things were performing in your development environment, how they were performing in your test environment, and how they were performing in your production environment. The ability to run filters over the top of them so that you can easily see what is completed, what has failed, potentially what's never been run. The ability to see the start and end dates of those processes, all being recorded in local time, so not having to worry about any conversion from GMT, for example. And being able to see the users that are executing those as well. So very quickly I can log into Cognos Command Center and start understanding, say, by filtering on the production system, what processes have been running completed or what have been failing, and which users potentially might have been having issues, all via just a few quick clicks of a button to filter them down to the areas of interest that I'm on. Each process within Cognos Command Center has a schedule associated with it. It's a very flexible scheduler. So you can set it up to run, say, daily at a specific time, or maybe hourly, or say you could do a custom calendar so it runs maybe the first Monday of every month, with a recurrence capability around that. So this is a lot more options than you would get out of the box with your normal TM1 TI process scheduler. There's a lot more flexibility in here, and it kind of combines almost the best worlds of the TI scheduler with a Windows scheduler, allowing you the ability to really have any control that you want around these processes that you're setting up within your TM1 environment, or things that are interacting with your TM1 environment. So in this particular slide, I'm giving an example of how you might organize your TM1 overnight chore. So most environments that have TM1 typically need to load information overnight, and as part of that overnight process you're typically interacting either with a source system, let's say a SQL Server or Oracle database, or you might be loading information in from, say, flat files, so CSV files that are appearing into a directory, and you might want to monitor for those CSV files to appear and then kick off the process once those files have appeared. So in this particular example here, I'm looking at one Cognos Command Center job, and in here I've broken it out into various different actions that are going to be performed. So to begin with, I've got a wait process at the top. It's going to wait until files appear into a directory. I'm going to be able to make a directory on the fly. So you can see the sort of control I've got over the environments here. When we start delving into the details, you'll find that I'm not actually running batch scripts to be able to enable this. I'm using wizard-based capability to make directories, or to be able to load TI processes. Everything is point and click, as opposed to trying to cobble together a batch file. The key one that I want to point out is that parallel TM1 load in the middle. So I'm actually executing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 TI processes in one group. That means I'm executing them all at the same time, but I am not executing the next TI process, which is the load FACT here, until the parallel group has actually finished loading. This means that I'm able to really put a lot of optimization around my overnight chore, rather than having to put any wait times into my TI processes, or putting an awful lot of scripting logic in. The fact that I have an object in Cognos Command Center, which is the parallel group, means that I'm able to actually set up this environment an easy, optimized overnight run, as opposed to having to write a lot of TI logic or batch process information to be able to enable a TI process to kick off straight after the previous 5 TI processes have been executed. So as we work our way down, we can see that we're then starting to interact with a SQL Server database. We're trying to get information from SQL Server, make sure that it's ready in a state to load. Once I've loaded that information in, one of the last things I'm going to do here is actually send a report. So I'm going to send a report to the people that are interested in how the overnight load has performed, so that they get a notification to say that everything ran okay, or if there was errors, then I can actually see what the errors are and be able to do something about them. So if you have a complex overnight job within TM1, the ability to lay it out logically in Cognos Command Center will mean that it's a lot more maintainable and a lot more efficient than you would currently get at the moment. And if you have to interact with any other environmental things, such as files coming in, directories needing to be made, conversations with FTP sites, then this really is a point-and-click wizard to be able to enable that. So in this next slide, what I wanted to highlight here was, because Cognos Command Center is actually a part of the financial performance stack of products within IBM, there is actually the inbuilt wizards here to communicate with Tier 1. And here you can see that you can go through and create what we call an automated task of type IBM and be able to execute a TM1 TI process. Then it's just a case of telling it which TI process is the one that you want to execute. But here it's also a good chance to have a look at some of the other things that Cognos Command Center is able to do as well, such as interacting with email systems, interacting with file utilities to create directories, interact with an FTP server to automatically pull down, say, a file from an FTP site. There's also ability to hook in directly to Oracle to be able to, say, extract information from Essbase or HFM. A bit of background to Cognos Command Center is that the reason why you might not have heard of the name Cognos Command Center is that it was actually accompanying a product called Star Analytics. Star Analytics was an acquisition by IBM, and one of the great things around that tool was how easily it enabled IBM to be able to transfer their Essbase cube information over to a set of TM1 cubes. It was Star Analytics, later renamed to Cognos Command Center, that enabled it to be such a easily automated process as they migrated from one cubing technology to another. So as you go in and execute, say, your overnight load for TM1, you effectively, all you need to do is press a play button. Once you press that play button, it then goes through and executes each of the individual tasks in the sequential order that you've set up within your Cognos Command Center process. Now what you can see here is how, when we're executing a Cognos Command Center job, that it's actually going through and showing you in real time what is executing, the status of it, whether it's completed or not, whether there is any error codes associated around it. So in this particular case here, you can see that I have set off a complete job, and it's successfully completed a number of these first jobs here, but then it's currently running my parallel TM1 job. So this is the parallel group that is executing each of these underlying TI processes all at the same time in parallel. So here we can see that the build for the full year has actually completed, but we don't actually want to execute the load FACT TI process until all of this group has completed here, all the way down to scenario. But because we've got a real-time view into how Cognos Command Center is executing these, we can see that it still needs to complete those remaining 4 TI processes before it moves on to the next stage of the job. Not only is this available through the thick client Cognos Command Center that is installed on your desktop or your server, but you're also able to see this in real time through a web page, or even via your mobile phone if you're given security access to as well. So another great thing about Cognos Command Center is the email integration capability. So I'm going to give a quick example of this live in real time. But if something was to go wrong with your overnight load, and you wanted to notify either yourself as the TM1 administrator, or maybe you wanted to notify a group of people, then if you wanted to send an email, you're probably writing a a batch file or a PowerShell script to enable such capability, and then you're using a call from a TI process to do an execute command to enable that talk to the SMTP server. Now, because Cognos Command Center is able to communicate with SMTP servers out of the box, providing the relevant details, you're able to then start easily adding email integration into any of your Cognos Command Center jobs. And the great thing here is that not only have I informed the administrator that something has either successfully been run, or if there has been errors within the system, what I can also do is I've provided a URL there, which means that the administrator can just click on that URL and he'll be taken to the web page of Cognos Command Center to actually see the details behind it. So if there was an error in this overnight load, but it was an error on a particular TI process, I would actually be taken to the details around that, rather than necessarily having to write a whole lot of bash script logic to enable that sort of functionality. And this is really what we're trying to drive here. We're trying to provide an environment that is easy to manage and automated, so that people are able to share job responsibilities rather than having to understand detailed VB scripts or batch files. So talking about web page control, and again I'll show you an example of this in a minute, but here we can see logging in via the URL, we're taking to the details around that Cognos Command Center process that was run, and here we can do see the details around it, so we can see the overall start and completed times, but also the individual tasks around it, when they started, when they completed, and potentially if there was any errors in there as well. So once you've actually started to have a look at Cognos Command Center and you've set up a few processes, you probably want to start including more people in the environment, and that's where it's good to know and understand that there is security capabilities within Cognos Command Center as well. So you can set up users and roles within the tool that can be utilized against Cognos Authentication Manager as well, if that's how your environment is set up. And so what you're able to do here is, because you might have a set of overnight jobs that relate to different Tier 1 servers, or different servers maintained around the world, then you might want to give different people access to run those overnight jobs or those sets of processes. You might want to say these groups can run these ones, whereas these groups can run the other ones. The key thing is in Cognos Command Center, there's the flexibility to add the security over the top of anything that is in Cognos Command Center to enable that capability. So I'm going to go into some live demonstrations now. If people do have any follow-up questions, then feel free to contact me on the email address there, and I'll put that back up at the end of the live demonstrations as well. So I'm just going to go across now into my Cognos Command Center environment. And the exciting thing today as well that I just thought I'd mention is that the presentation that we're doing today, I'm running this entirely through IBM SoftLayer. So I've got an environment set up within SoftLayer environment, which is a really exciting part of the IBM capabilities, and it's one that we're very excited about, is being able to offer the web-based environments and be able to move your business analytic tools across to the SoftLayer environments. And here I'm running Cognos Command Center in a SoftLayer environment against a PM1 server, and all of this is contained within a server somewhere over in London, I believe. So I'm logged into Cognos Command Center here, and this is the first page that I'm presented with. This is the overall dashboard that's giving me details around the various different processes that are set up within the Cognos Command Center interfaces. So I've got my ecosystem. I might have multiple ecosystems within my environment. The one that I'm really interested in today is some examples I've got around TM1 administration. The other one that I've got there is an interesting example around how you can really control logic around automation into TM1 from underlying databases such as SQL Server. And where that's really applicable and really interesting is when it comes to things like how TM1 could be combined with Cognos Controller, for example, and how you might want to automate jobs through Cognos Command Center to enable interaction between those two sets of capabilities. So if I just want to filter upon the processes that are applicable to my TM1 administration ecosystem, then just clicking on the drop down I can immediately see that list of objects there. And if I had multiple environments in here, currently these are all set up to run against a test environment, but it might be that I have environments for my test server and my production server, and I'd be able to filter based upon those different environments to see, say, how an overnight job is running in test versus how an overnight job is running in production. Across the top here I've got the status filters, so I can see maybe what's currently running, so what's executed live on the server at this point in time, what's succeeded or not, anything that's currently failed. So when I start unticking these, it will start filtering the processes in the list below. So as I untick succeeded, you can see the list is now filtered down to ones that if they haven't succeeded, then by assumption there must be something that needs investigating around them as to what's happened. I can see here that some of these have just never been run within my environment, but there is this one here that seems to be failing here, and this is where it last started and finished here. So it looks like it only took a couple of seconds to execute, but there is something that's gone wrong in this process that I might want to be able to investigate further. So just clicking on succeeded again, I'm able to see the full list against it. I mentioned around the scheduling capability, and I can easily start to see ones that are scheduled or not. None of these are scheduled in this particular case, but any of these I can go in and I can run the schedule calendar and start putting a schedule around it that I have finite control over, so I can execute it, say, even down to the last Sunday in a month potentially. So to give you a bit of an idea how these get created and sort of what they look like, I'm going to scroll down here, which is the design of my TM1 administration ecosystem. So everything is grouped together into my different ecosystems. You may just have one ecosystem within your TM1 environment. Underneath here I've got processes. To give you an example, I'm going to have a look at this first one here. So this process here to stop the Cognos TM1 server. Now traditionally in your TM1 environment you might actually have a way to stop your TM1 server, but you might be running, say, a batch job to enable that and be running a net command to do that. Now I'm not saying that you couldn't do that going forwards, but certainly what you start to get in Cognos Command Center is greater visibility and control and the removal of those random batch files that you might have around your system. So within this process here, I've actually got a task, which is to stop my IBM Cognos TM1 server, and to stop it, I'm actually just using drop-down menu systems here. So I'm actually selecting this computing resource, which is going to manage a Windows service, and within here I've actually got an action of whether I want to start or stop it. So at no stage here am I writing a batch file to enable this type of functionality. It's all drop-down wizard-based menus that I'm using. This is great from a perspective of anything to do with batch files you're normally looking for. Where is that batch file located? Do I have security around the folders that contain those batch files? Who has the security access to run those batch files? Whereas here, if they've got it set up in Cognos Command Center, I'm controlling through security in a wizard-based format who can access things. And if I need to change a job or stop a job, I'm just using wizard-based capability to do it. So in a similar sort of way, I'm also stopping the Tier 1 application server here and the Tier 1 admin server. So I've got control over any Windows service that is available on this environment here. In the same way, I might want to start my Cognos Tier 1 servers as well. It might be that instead of doing this on a nightly basis, this is maybe a way that you automate your weekend restarts at Tier 1. Typically, it's good practice to restart your Tier 1 server at regular intervals to clear out that cache, potentially weekly, potentially monthly, depending upon your type of Tier 1 server. But in this particular case, you can see how I can start to build up logic that could be executed, say, on a monthly basis, logic that could be executed on a nightly basis, and control access around who does what, when, and where. So here, I've been able to say start a Tier 1, a Windows service, instead of stopping it. And right at the end, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to list the Windows services that have been started, and as a final task in this process, I'm actually going to send an email. So upon success of all my servers coming up, I want to be able to notify the administrator. And the interesting thing I'd like to draw your attention to is down here at the bottom is this variable here. So we're not hard coding the subject matter that's going into this email. We're actually putting a variable around it, which is what is represented by this dollar symbol here, which means that we can provide different email subjects for different outcomes or different processes that we're running. And all of this is controlled and managed within the within the Cognos Command Center capabilities, rather than having to write a whole bunch of nested if statements to theoretically send different emails based upon different outcomes. So our next task here is an interesting example around backing up your Tier 1 service. Again, people might have written batch processes to be able to do this, but those batch processes are typically very complex to understand, and certainly very hard to make any changes around them unless you've really got a detailed skill level. So in this particular case, my Tier 1 backup process, I'm going through, and in one of my tasks, I'm deleting anything less than 7 days old. And to do that, I'm going through, and again, I've got a variable in my path directory this time. So my variable of my backup directory with then a hard-coded Tier 1 server file location, and then a variable at the end to notify the next level down, and going through and deleting anything that is less than 7 days older in that directory. Then I'm going through and running a task to stop the Tier 1 server. So before I go and copy any files, I want to bring it down safely. It might be that before going and stopping it, I actually run a TI process to do a save data roll, which would be good practice. I'm then dynamically creating a directory on the fly. So here again you can see my command is to create a directory within this environment, but I'm actually passing in variables as to what the name of that directory should be. So here right at the end here, I'm creating a backup directory, and it's going to create that backup directory with a date stamp against it. Next I'm actually running, you can see a little symbol change here. And the interesting thing here is that I'm actually running a command to run a WinZip to be able to back up the contents of the directory into a zip folder here. So that means that I've got a nicely compressed zip file before I go ahead and do any other tasks. Then I'm going and copying my CUB files. So I'm going into my data directory and I'm picking up anything in my source location, being the TM1 server directory /data, and I'm filtering based upon anything that ends in a .cub extension. So I'm grabbing all of those and I'm putting it into my destination directory here. Again, all of this is very possible in complex batch scripts, but here I'm actually creating a nicely organized, efficient environment. It's very easy for someone from finance or IT to be able to understand and administer. So then I'm also in a similar sort of capability, grabbing my dimension files, my process files, and my RUX files. So I've got a pretty comprehensive backup of my data directory here. And then I might go ahead and list the contents of what I've created and maybe email that out to somebody. After creating the backup, I'm then going to start the TM1 server and then send an email based upon a successful or not outcome to the list of administrators. And here at the top you can see I've got a variable within this process listing who my administrators might be. And as that changes over time, I could adjust that group and that variable. The actual message that is going to be contained within this email is actually going to be consisted of this TM1 server backup email.html. So I'm actually able to send highly formatted emails by utilizing HTML capability in here, and that reference is actually contained down here upon my file resources. So I could use any of these that I've added into the system. And to give you an example, this is my editor showing me some HTML that is going to provide a very richly formatted email as opposed to just some text. So that's a look at a bit more of a complex one, backing up a TM1 directory and being able to deploy multiple tasks in one process that is taking you through that logical step of things. The next one I've got here is one just to show an example of loading a set of data into TM1 via a TI process, and this just consists of one step. So I've just got an execution of a TI and I've just got the name of the TI process down here at the bottom, which is the only thing I need to do to execute it. This one doesn't have any parameters, but if it did have any parameters, I could supply them at runtime as well. If there isn't any additional processing logic, notice as well across the top, I can do various different pre-task actions or post-task actions before I actually go ahead and do something. I've got ways to handle various different errors. So based upon the execution of the process, I might want to take different actions. Now, when I go through and execute one of these in a second, I've actually got one here called create error. Now, this is actually doing a similar sort of thing. It's going to go through, it's going to execute against my TM1 server, and it's going to execute this TI process. This TI process is deliberately set up to cause an error, and the reason why is because I then want to start automating an email out to the administrator to say that an error has occurred and something should be done about it. I've got some other interesting examples down here which are to do with like monitoring the TM1 server log, monitoring the TM1 transaction log, even going down to the level of monitoring the audit log. Tier 1 is very comprehensive in the logging set of information that it maintains. These files can get quite large, and you do need to potentially sometimes go hunting for the specific type of information that you're after. But in this particular case, not only are we monitoring those log files, and you can see here I've got a various different set of tasks to go through and pick up information that is filtered by time, looking maybe for specific textual information within there. But the other thing that I'm doing here as well is sending the results of this information actually into a SQL Server database. So I'm actually posting the results of my log file harvest and posting that results into a SQL Server database so that I can go and review that over time, or potentially even have that available to Cognos BI for reporting over the top via Cognos BI's dashboarding and pixel perfect reporting capability as well. So just close a few of these down now to create a bit of space. Now I can go in and I can actually run any of these jobs from my administration console here. So I can go and run these from here, or I can actually go into the web page and run them as well. So here I've just flipped over into a web browser, and I'm going into the URL for my Cognos Command Center. I've authenticated against Cognos Command, and I've provided my login details. Typically it's logged me out and brought me onto a nice splash screen around announcing IBM Watson Analytics, which is very timely if you've started to see the information in the press around IBM Watson Analytics. Just going back in again, you can see this is my web page here, and if I click on Process Overview, okay, this is where I wanted to be. Watson was just an ironic little diversion there, shall we say. So here we've got that same capability from the Cognos Command Center, but actually available over the web here. And I might want to go in and execute all these processes to run, or I might want to execute an individual TI process, and I can drill in and I can see this run TI process here. Last time it ran, it came up as failed. Or if I want to run this one again from a web page, I come up to the top right hand corner here, start the process, create error, start it, and it will now go and issue the command against the tier 1 server to execute that TI process, and you can now see that the start and end time has updated with the latest time information, bearing in mind that this is time I think over in London at the moment. Has produced an error with a particular type of exit code against it as well. Now, bearing in mind that I'm running these one by one at the moment, but it might be that my overnight chore, the job was to go and run all of this information sequentially. Now, if I want to go and check my errors, I can go in and run the particular process that's going to check the errors. Bearing in mind this is going through and it was filtering down into the directory that I need to be looking at. It was finding the correct files. It was going in and it was finding the correct textual information that I wanted. You can see here as it's going through, it's updating in real time as it completes each one of these tasks. So I can see a live result as to how many log entries it found. And it's going through and now completing the child tasks. As part of this, it's updating a little SQL Server database in the background to enable BI reporting over the top of it. And as we go through and complete various different tasks, there we go down at the bottom, it's now automated the sending through of an email that it's discovered, an email of an error that it's discovered within the system, and I can go into my email box and obviously pick up the error associated with it. I can customize this email message specifically around either my environment or the TI process that might have happened in there. So you've got a very rich, thick client for creating and maintaining your Cognos Command Center ecosystems, and you've got a web-based capability to enable people to log on anytime, anywhere, and be able to monitor and execute those processes. And that capability is also available obviously via mobile as well. So the screen will actually adjust itself according to the mobile phone web browser size, so that you're able to monitor that information live and execute that information as you need to as well. So not only have we got integration into TM1 servers, but there's integration into Essbase, HFM, Oracle databases, SQL Server databases, and anything file system as well. The key thing about Cognos Command Center is really taking all of that scripting logic that is lying around your environment and moving it into a sustainable, efficient capability that is going to enable IT or finance to be able to monitor their environments going forwards, simplify it down so that it isn't someone purely with great batch file knowledge that is able to set up and monitor these jobs going forward. The other thing I'll just reiterate as well is those automations of the TM1 overnight jobs to ensure efficiency around your data load times via the execution of TIs in parallel groups. Also means that you can start to move away from complex batch file systems or open source tools that really require a lot of expert knowledge around, and move it more into a sustainable, supported environment that is really going to benefit you in the long run. So, thank you everyone for your time today. I'm conscious that this is really just an introduction to Cognos Command Center. There's so many different ways that you could use Cognos Command Center. What I'd like to do is really be putting it out there as an opportunity for you to look at your environment, understand how your environment might be operating between development, test, prod, and think about the sort of complexity that might be there in terms of customization, batch files, and think about how that could be simplified going forwards, so that it's not just reliant upon one person who only understands that logic. So I'm very happy to run through anything in more specific detail with people, and I'm also very happy to come out and visit people individually and look at the potential of showing you, potentially via a proof of concept, how Cognos Command Center could really benefit your organization moving forward. So at this point in time, it's probably a good time to open it up to any questions that might be available coming in. Happy to take those questions. There's one here that asking what versions of TM1 are supported via Cognos Command Center. So the versions that are supported by Cognos Command Center, they're the supported versions of TM1 at the moment. So that's TM1 952, TM1 10.11, and TM1 10.2. You'll have noticed recently a end of support notification coming up for 952, which is due in for September 2015. So people hopefully will be looking towards updating their Tier 1 environments to either 10.1 or 10.2, and those would be the ones that I'd be recommending against Cognos Command Center, but 9.5.2, 10.1 and 10.2 are all supported at this time. And another question is, what is the latest version of Cognos Command Center? So the latest version is 10.2, and there's actually a fixed pack available as well. So just like Cognos BI and TM1, there are fixed packs available across the Business Analytics suite, and it's 10.2 fixed pack 1, that's the latest version. And as well as the video that we've done here today, there's good videos up on the Business Analytics YouTube website, and there's extensive documentation available on the IBM website as well if people want to have a look there. And this video will be up on the Tridant YouTube website later on today, and there's plenty of other worthwhile videos looking at there as well. And another quick question is around Cognos Express. Is it suitable for Cognos Express customers? Yes. I mean, it would be if any environment that is if you find yourself with having to interact with scripting logic, then it would be worthwhile looking at Cognos Command Center, although worth saying, I think, that there is currently no mid-market edition available. And then a question around licensing. Yes, so the licensing is around actually the agents that I outlined earlier in the architecture. That's the main way that it has the licensing setup. So if it is of interest, happy to delve further into that side, but I'm no expert in licensing myself. I concentrate on the technicalities. And then does it do TM1 top functionality? There isn't any time to TM1 top. I'd definitely be encouraging people to be moving away from TM1 top and looking more at TM1 Operations Console. Going forwards, the changes to TM1 Operations Console over 10.1, 10.2 have been very extensive. So it's not in any way trying to replace Operations Console, but certainly what it's doing is it's providing a way to automate your environment, but also anything that you've provided script files for in terms of integration with SMTPs or run TIs. These are things that you're wanting to execute and then get success or failure messages against, and be able to do either conditional actions dependent upon them, or certainly notifying people as quickly as possible so corrective action can be taken. So thank you everyone for your attention today, and thank you everyone for your questions. Hopefully you see some benefit in Cognos Command Center, and we'll be running another webinar next month, and please keep an eye out for details of that coming up shortly. Thank you.